Good morning. Believe it or not, the reason why I'm running a little late, Congressman, is because I was on the phone with a constituent who was complaining about being victimized. Her mail has been stolen 3 times in the last month. As a matter of fact, I looked up some data from October 1st of last year to March 31st of this year. There have been 25,000 cases of mail theft in this country. And it's not exclusive only to the mail, but our postal workers are being victimized as well. There have been about 300 postal workers who've been victimized and robbed from that same period of October of last year to March of this year. And I'm sure you know the old adage, neither sleet nor rain nor gloom of night. But we don't need our postal workers facing the possibility of being robbed at gunpoint. So I commend Congressman Bill Pascrell for stepping up for our postal workers and stepping up for people who want to use mail. We are encouraging people at City Hall, our constituents, to pay online because of what's been happening. We encourage them to pay their sewer bills, their tax bills online when they can. But you have elderly individuals who only know traditional, or as what we call it, snail mail. So they don't necessarily understand the online process, and hence the constituent today complaining to me that she's been victimized 3 times in the last month, a victim of mail theft. And so this could come at a more opportune time. Our congressman once again stepping up for senior citizens, stepping up for regular citizens who just want to use the mail, and stepping up for postal workers to make sure they're safe as well. So it is with profound pride that I introduce our warrior in Washington, Congressman Bill Pascrell.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to introduce folks that are representing all Postal Police, the National President of the Postal Police Officers Association, my good friend Frank Albergo, the New Jersey Postal Police Officer from Kearney, Garrett Loveless, right? Oh, he didn't come. Oh. Ben Lemison, thank you for being here. New Jersey Postal Police Officer, New Jersey City. And Michael Santiago, is he here? Okay, on your mind. New Jersey, and you're Kearney. Very good. I want to give you a little background before I rant and rave. I think it's good to put it into context, so we know why we're here, what this is all about. The co-lead in this effort in the United States is a Republican congressman from Long Island, New York rather, Andrew Garbarino. This has been a bipartisan effort from the very beginning, so it should not involve anything dealing with the Hatch Act. I'll come back to that later on. You're going to get a double header today. The United States Postal Services has historically employed 2 types of law enforcement officers. Frank, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, okay? Interrupt. There's postal inspectors and postal police officers. Postal inspectors are plainclothes detectives whose main duty is to conduct criminal investigations into postal crimes. like mail theft and fraud. Postal Police officers, who are uniformed law enforcement officers whose main responsibility is to actively patrol and protect postal property and workers. Am I correct? For 50 years, Postal Police officers have patrolled postal real estate. Collection boxes, mail in transit, postal workers away from their main post office. In August of 2020, the United States Postal Service, under the direction of my friend Postmaster at that time, General Louis DeJoy, should have never had the job in the first place, but that's okay, issued a directive ordering the Postal Police officers to end their patrol duties away from the postal office locations, restricting their law enforcement and protective functions to only postal real estate. As a result, these officers no longer have any law enforcement authority except when they are physically stationed on real estate owned by or leased by the Postal Service. Nothing in the streets. So Andrew, Congressman Garabino, and I put a bill together to reverse what happened in August of 2020. That blocks the Postal Police officers, what happened in 2020, from fully executing their law enforcement duties. In 2023, Representative Garabino also reintroduced the legislation, and here we are. It's always great to be here at our beloved Larry Doby Post Office. We're here to discuss some serious issues. Mail theft, increased violence against postal workers. Americans have a sacred trust in their postal service. There may be no government agency more beloved than the post office. Tragically, this service has come under unprecedented attacks that have threatened the ability to do the job. And I say to you right now, you can't do your job under the present legislation. From 2017 to 21, reported mail theft rose by over a staggering 1,000%. 1,000%. Last year, there were over 38,000 reported incidents of mail theft. In the first half of this year, there have already been 25,000 reported incidents just this year. Let me interrupt. I've said this in the Congress. I came here for this reason. I don't know why you came to the Congress. I turn to my brothers and sisters. There are two kinds of congressmen. One goes to change the world, and the other goes to change their community and make it better in their district. That's it. That's what we need to change, what goes on in our communities, in our district. That's the first thing we got to take care of. That doesn't mean that the world is not important. That's not at all what I am saying. It's not an either or proposition. At the same time that we've had in the first half of this year 25,000 reported incidents of mail theft, arrests and convictions for mail theft have dropped almost 50%. The period of time I just mentioned. 50% decrease in apprehensions and convictions. are seeing violence against postal workers, robberies of mail carriers. They have increased an astonishing, get this, 821%. Who cares? They're only postal workers. Of course, that's nonsense. That's an outrage. These people do the job every day. They are part of our first responder base, by the way. For over 50 years, brave postal officers like those right here patrolled our streets. They protected mail and they kept it out of the hands of criminals. 2016, Postal Police officers conducted over 3,000 letter carrier protection patrols in New Jersey, including over 600 right here in Patterson. At that time, Louis DeJoy stripped the Postal Police, as you know, finally in 2020. Mr. DeJoy stopped our officers from being able to conduct any patrol outside of the physical post office locations. Am I not correct? I'm Mr. DeJoy's foremost critic in the Congress. I know the money he has behind him to get the job in the first place. And I know why it's been difficult to get rid of him, because it's the Board of Governors and not the President that makes the appointment. So now they're changing all the Board of Governors. Mr. DeJoy stopped our officers from being able to conduct any patrol outside of the physical post office location. If that isn't madness, I don't know what is. I called on him to clean house at the United States Postal Service and limit the employment by the post office of Mr. DeJoy. To this very day, he's still there. He's the guy that was the engineer behind trying to change when ballots would come in on elections. You don't remember that because we don't put it together. And I'm the biggest supporter in the Congress of the media. I believe what Peter Zecker said and what he worked on. And now that we have fewer newspapers, the message is starting to come across. Oh, we'll read the papers on the internet. We'll go to the computer. Congress has made important progress to right the postal ship. We finally removed the pension pre-funding obligation that existed since the early part of this century, which absolutely wrecked the postal finances today. On mail theft and violence against postal workers, Congress can and should do more and must do more. To that end, I introduced bipartisan legislation to reduce the order of 2020. My Postal Police Reform Act would allow postal police to return to patrolling our streets and let the officers do their jobs. Postal Police have been doing this for over 50 years. Americans are entitled to get their mail. We must stop handcuffing postal law enforcement officers. As the longtime co-chair of the Law Enforcement Caucus, I always support helping police keep us safe. Let's let police do what they do best. God bless our postal police. God bless America. And as I said, we were originally going to schedule this in the post office. But if you remember, the last time I ran for office, pretty soon 2 years ago, run every 2 years, I was not allowed in the Kearney Postal Depot because they said I was going to violate the Hatch Act. This bill is co-introduced by a Republican. This is a bipartisan piece of legislation. It is not partisan. And the law says something very interesting. You ought to go to the law. What does the law say, Mr. Giuliani? Read the law. I'm not a lawyer. The law says this: employees of the federal government from, among other things, engaging in partisan political activity while on duty or on government property is verboten. Political activity is defined, listen carefully to this, as an action directed toward the success or failure of a political party. A candidate for a partisan political office or a partisan political group. A Postal Service employee is prohibited from engaging in partisan political activity while on duty in uniform in a postal vehicle or on postal property. So in other words, the total. This is what the law says. I just read you the law. We got a bipartisan bill. Co-sponsor is a Republican. I happen to be a Democrat. Proud of it. He's proud of it. Him being a Republican. That's it. They did this to me once before, I told you, almost 2 years ago. Myself and Tom Malinowski could not get into the Kearney Depot. They said this is partisan politics. So hold on to your hands, hats, sport fans. This is going to be fun. I'd like Frank, come up here, Frank, the president, national president of postal officers. It's yours.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Congressman Pascrell for his continued support for Postal Police and law enforcement in general. He's been a great friend to police officers. I don't know what we do without it, to be honest with you. So I represent Postal Police officers. We are the uniform division of the Inspection Service, which is the law enforcement arm of the Postal Service. So the Postal Service pays for a uniform police force that it will not use. Postal police officers are federal police officers. We're specially trained to stop mail theft and protect letter carriers, and we're being prevented from doing our jobs. It makes absolutely no sense. If these two officers were on that sidewalk and saw a letter carrier being attacked in this park, they could do nothing about it. They have no police authority to stop the attack. That's insane. And it needs to be changed. And thank God for Representatives Garbarino and Pascrell introducing this legislation. It's no cost. It's common sense. And for some reason, the Postal Service is fighting it. They don't want the option to use postal police officers to protect letter carriers who are being attacked on a daily basis. Every day, a letter carrier has a gun stuck in their face throughout America. That is not an exaggeration. That's happening every day. And what are we doing about it? Well, postal police aren't doing anything about it. We're protecting buildings. We're not protecting postal workers. It's an outrage, and it needs to change. Postal police officers are confused. They don't understand why they can't do their jobs. We've been doing this for 50 years. And then in August of 2020, the Postal Service decided, we don't want you doing that anymore. I mean, it's a simple concept. You put the cops where the crime is. Right now, postal-related crime is happening on the streets. That's where Postal Police should be. But we're not on the streets. We're protecting buildings. It's a problem. So I just want to thank Congressman Pascrell again for introducing this legislation. Hopefully it gets passed. It's no cost and it's common sense. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate it. As you know, I can't call on you guys to speak. I won't, even though we are on city property. You're not supposed to call. So you're protected. If anybody wants me to repeat the numbers that I did before, which I said before, I will. Some quick closing numbers that put it, I think, well in perspective. The responsibility of handling robberies has now fallen to the inspectors, who are already charged with enforcing around 200 other laws. I counted them. 200 other laws. The inspectors investigated less than 1% of the mail theft. Public, hear this, the complaints during fiscal year 2021, despite having sole authority to do so. The number of arrests for postal theft has dropped more than 50%, although our problem is blown up in our face. The arrests have gone down 50%. In fiscal year 2016, postal officers conducted 3,167 letter carrier protection patrols. 624 of those patrols were done in Madison. Since the Postal Police were stripped of the ability in 2020, there have been 0 carrier protection patrols conducted in the entire United States. 0. Wonderful. According to statistics compiled by the National Association of Postal Supervisors and the Office of Inspector General, mail theft complaints by the public increased, Mayor, by 1,096%. That's why we're getting 2022 alone, there are over 38,500 reported mail thefts. That's astonishing. In the first half of 2023, there have already been 25,000 in just the 2 years since postal was stripped of law enforcement authority. This year alone, robberies of mail carriers increased 78%. I guess that's not many. I guess big boys in the office don't think that that's important enough to respond to. Questions? Yes, sir. Who are you?
Adam with NBC. Congressman Sayegh, good morning. This question is for the mayor. Mr. Mayor, good morning to you. The United States Postal Inspection Service had announced a couple of weeks ago that in July, a letter carrier book personal mail and those attempted armed robbery of the U.S. Postal Service like the carrier worth up to $50,000. This was in July over on Liberty Street. Curious, A, if there is an update to that case.
Thanks, Adam. Unfortunately, we don't have an update at this time, but I'm going to be circling back with our public safety director to see if we have any additional information as to the incident on Liberty Street and if we've been able to identify anyone. Congressman, you would appreciate this, just pivoting back or circling back to what I said before. The woman that I referenced that had her mail stolen 3 times, you and I know her. She'll remain nameless, but she lives on Lakeview Avenue, and she is an elderly resident of the city of Patterson.
I guess
You got it. We're not going to publicize that.
Do I know my city?
Yes, you got her. You should call her.
I will.
And Congressman, if I may just follow up on that. Your report earlier about the police officers who are effectively not able to do their job
Outside of the post office. That's correct.
How much is earmarked in terms of dollar amount that U.S. taxpayers are paying for these services?
I don't know off the top of my head. That's an excellent question, but I do know I can get it in 15 minutes. And that question is very, very important. But we're not getting that information unless I dig into them, and then we get the information. But the numbers, I'll stand by every number I gave you, that what's happened in the increase in crime and the increase in violence against carriers. And I think that's totally unacceptable. And I'm trying to do something about it. But so is my friend from New York. We will. Everything they told me on, we've got so far. We didn't get this yet. We've got to do this. The post office needs real reform. Start the process. We voted on the bill, remember, a few years ago, to reform postal service. But we've got to do things about it. And one of the things we did is not put that burden on the post office that when they sit down to do their budget, they have to include the pension money for the next several years in the present budget. And we've stopped that from happening. And that will be a big help for the postal service. Questions?
Cantwell, Rich County.
Mr. Cantwell.
Oh, sir. In 2020, what was the reason that they gave to limit the officers to running the rest of the building?
I want you to find, I'm not trying to be a wise guy. Patterson's busy. They were going to make sure when they absolutely decimated the Postal Police that all the money would be then going on to the inspectors. But we've seen how inside the post office that declined as well as the outside. We knew the outside would have major problems when they decided that they were going to take the responsibility away from them. We had to get that money back into their budget in order to make sure that the postal service officers who are trained, certified, can be out in the street doing their job. That's what we got to do. Richie?
Do the inspectors now go out into the street and do the work of the police officers? Or are they
Good question.
Postal inspectors, they're great criminal investigators, but they don't prevent crime. They investigate crime after the fact. So after the fact, right. And they have more than just investigating letter carrier robberies and mail fraud. They investigate, as Congressman said, a slew of other postal-related crime. So they're overwhelmed as well. They would love to use postal police as crime prevention, but they can't. So the postal inspectors want to use postal police officers, but DC won't allow it.
inspectors do any of these proactive effective controls of stored mail carriers?
Not really.
How are they preventing the crime? Do they follow around letter carriers? It seems random. You can't have enough police to do with each postman. So I know it happens, but how does it work?
Even if you had enough, they don't have the authority.
Is it a visual deterrent to protect them while they're there? Do they happen to cross it? How does it
That's all gone.
but how did it work in the first place?
Well, Postal Police officers, we were equipped with intelligence-led policing equipment. We'd be deployed to where the carriers were most vulnerable, where mail theft was most prevalent, and it worked. I mean, data shows that postal-related street crime decreased by 50 to 66% based on Postal Police patrolling activity. That's all gone now. So the crime prevention is done.
No one has that responsibility.
Other than
The
Postal Police.
inspectors aren't going out and doing, and go back to the original question, they're not doing what the police were doing. We're acting like we don't need that. But these numbers show not only we need that, we better do this pretty quickly.
And to dovetail on Rich's question, happy belated birthday, Rich. And Adam, this is of interest to you as well. 3 years ago, this is to speak to the inspectors and the job they have to do, we had council people in Patterson who were indicted for mail fraud pertaining to vote-by-mail ballots. There were actually 300 mail-in ballots found in Haledon for Patterson. So this is the work the inspectors have to do, and it ultimately led to the indictment of council people in Patterson. And Donald Trump actually tweeted about that, but I took exception because he spelled Patterson with 2 T's. That's a pet peeve of our congressman.
Mortal sin.
It is a mortal sin. I actually retweeted.
There's a Patterson with 2 T's in California.
Yes, I think in New York too.
New York, I think is.
It's
One.
Zendaya, Adam, Amanda Lee.
What would be the difference between a postal police officer and just a regular police officer? What would be the difference?
Postal Police specialize in mail theft prevention, or at least we did. Basically, our jurisdiction is limited to postal-related crime. It used to be any postal-related crime. Now it's only postal-related crime that happens on postal service property. So, but we're in full uniform, carry weapons. We're even equipped with ballistic shields, ballistic helmets, shotguns, and we're fully functional. It's not being used.
That's right. That's not an exaggeration. Even with the numbers I gave you, it's not an exaggeration. But the trajectory moving forward heads in that direction. And it's foolish. It really is. Dime-wise, penny-wise.
Yes. So at one point there were 2,700 of us. Now we're down to 350 bargaining units and about an additional 100 supervisors, sergeants, lieutenants, captains. The Postal Service pays for over 700 postal police officers. What they do with that extra money, I have no idea. We have classes coming up, but our attrition rate exceeds our hiring rate. So by next year, we'll probably have fewer people.
Whoever was the lead in making this the final decision, the legislation introduced in 2020, whoever put that together, who did they talk with? What numbers did they look at? So their thought is, we're going to save a lot of money because we can get the inspectors. They're protecting us. We don't really need the police. But the numbers don't show that. How in God's name did that administration make the changes based on what data? That's really what you're asking. I can't find it. I mean, you say, well, we can join the service. Let's join the police and the inspectors, and that's what we'll do. They didn't even say that. They just disqualified the police. Now you see they're down to 300. They don't have the manpower to do and face the questions that the mayor talked about, questions Frank talked about. They don't have the people. Any other questions? Yes.
Any injuries with mail carriers or
I'm sure the Patterson area, was there any injuries to the Patterson carriers down there?
Patterson, I know a letter carrier had been in Milwaukee. A letter carrier was murdered. In Chicago, a letter carrier was shot. They're expecting over 610 robberies of letter carriers in fiscal year 2023. That's up by over 800%. 800% since 2018. I mean, so it's exploding. It's absolutely exploding. And the letter carriers themselves know where they're in most danger. So for letter carrier request postal protection, but the Postal Service tells the letter carrier no. You can't have Postal Police Service protection on this specific street. I mean, that's crazy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
Okay, my question. Okay, we got all these people walking around here like zombies. Okay? Alright? Our kids are seeing the needles in the walkways everywhere. Okay, the kid asked me, he says, what? He says, Mr. Jefferson, why are all these people walking around like zombies? Because everybody thinks that Patterson is a dumping ground.
Yeah, it's not a dumping ground, and if they need help, actually this is better suited for an offline conversation, Mr. Jefferson. And there are avenues to get people to sobriety. This press conference is about mail carriers, and also, yes,
Well, they need to have what's name with it.
that's
Okay, because I want my mail. I don't want my mail stolen at the spot. But if I gotta do something, you know what I'm going to
that's
do.
right. You got it, Mr. Jefferson.
Okay?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Dan?
God bless and thank you for coming today.
Yes.
I hope that you think this is as important as I think it is. And I hope that this is just the beginning of some solutions that change things for the better. Thanks for coming.